Friends, today I want to talk to you a little bit about clothing and items that were in the Mishkan and in the Beit HaMikdash. There seems to be a crossover between the parashiot we are in right now, which are discussing the kelim, the vessels that were inside the Mishkan and then eventually found their permanent home in the Beit HaMikdash, and Megillat Esther, because we are in the season for Purim, and Megillat Esther obviously features very heavily. So how do we see this connection between the Beit HaMikdash, which had been destroyed many years before the story of Purim came into existence, and the actual Beit HaMikdash and the Purim story, which is going to reference a number of those items? So let's have a look at that together. The parashiyot tell us that the Kohen Gadol used to wear beautiful garments, of which there were 8. I was just talking to a Kohen in the Bet Knesset upstairs, and he gives lots of Birchat Kohanim, obviously, in the Bet Knesset, and he said, I wish I could wear the items of a Kohen. A regular Kohen Hediot wore 4 items of clothing. I said, but you don't want to aim low, you want to aim high. What did the Kohen Gadol wear? 8 items of clothing. And they really gave tremendous splendor, tiferet, to the wearer. These items had extremely high significance, and they gave tremendous kavod, honor, to the wearer. Of course, not only that, every item in the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash had such splendor. It was made beautifully. It was made with great care and understanding. Sometimes it was so difficult to even imagine what the item in the Mishkan looked like that even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't fully understand the production of these kelim. And Hashem said, don't worry, take some gold, throw it in the fire, and out popped the menorah. There was such detail. And Bezalel, when he designed and he put together all of the kelim, the Torah goes out of its way to say, wow, he had such a skill, he had such a chokhmah, a wisdom in making these items. So they were beautiful, they had tremendous significance, and most importantly for today's discussion, the people that wore the kelim, because some of the vessels in the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash were worn by individuals like the Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol, that they really impressed you. You, the viewer of these individuals, when you saw these items being worn, they blew you away. And the Torah goes out of its way to tell us this. Let's now jump to our Purim story. Because in the Purim story, it opens up at a party. And this party was not an ordinary party. This party lasted for 180 days. It's a 6-month party. You think you partied at college. This party blew it out of the water. When did this party occur? And why is this party the opening scene of the Megillah? So the rabbis tell us that the Megillah tells us, which was obviously written by Mordechai and Esther, that this party occurred in the 3rd year of Achashverosh's reign. He was in the 3rd year. Why is he having a party in the 3rd year of his reign? Maybe it's an opener. It should be the first month, first 6th month. Why did Achashverosh wait for 3 years to make this party that he's going to invite Jewish people and many non-Jewish people from his 127 provinces? What exactly is this party all about? So, in order to understand that, you need to understand, my friends, about a prophecy which happened during the first Beit HaMikdash. And the prophecy was from the prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah told the Jewish people during the first Beit HaMikdash that if you don't get your act together and you don't stop the Avodah Zarah and you don't stop the Shfichut Damim, the murder, and you don't stop the Gilurah, the forbidden sexual relationships, there's going to be a galut, an exile. However, this exile is going to last for how long? Shivim Shanim, for 70 years. A 70-year exile. This is unusual because usually we're not told when a punishment begins and ends. For example, our present exile, we're not too sure how long it's going to last for. When Yaakov Avinu saw in his dream that we'd be in this final galut, he knew it was going to last a long time, hundreds if not thousands of years. But the ending was not told to him. However, here, Jeremiah says, you're going to be in exile 70 years. The problem was that nobody knew exactly when the 70 years began and when it ended. And everyone, Jewish people and Goyim, had their own calculation when to begin the 70-year count of the Jewish people in Galut. You answer me. Does this 70 years begin with the exit of the first Jew from Israel? Does it begin with the exit of the last Jew? Does it begin with the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash of King Solomon? Does it begin with the exit of the Rabbanim, the leaders of the generation? This was up for debate. And if you don't know when the 70 years begins, you also don't know when it ends. And so the Gemara at Megillah tells us something unbelievable. Even the Goyim had their own calculation of when it ends. Why do they care? The Jews are in exile. Why do they care? Because they like having Jews with them in Galut. It's good to have Jews in Paras. It's good to have doctors and lawyers and business people. And so they want to keep them in Galut. Did you know that even Achashverosh had his own calculation as to when the 70-year exile of the Jewish people would end in order to get the Jewish people to leave and go back to Israel? His calculation, my friends, ended in the 3rd year of his reign. In the 3rd year of his reign. So now imagine this. Achashverosh has taken on military conquest and he's won and he's reached the highest. He's taken over from his predecessors Belshazzar and Nebuchadnezzar. And he's taken all the spoils of war, all the kelim in the Beit HaMikdash, and captured them from these previous dictators. He now enters the 3rd year of his reign. He looks out and says, aha! The Jewish people have not returned to the land of Israel. The 70 years are over. And look, they have returned, because his calculation put the end of the 70 years in the 3rd year of his reign. Now, how does he feel? How does Achashverosh feel in the 3rd year of his reign? He's like, oh, baby, your prophets were wrong. The 70 years is finished. I'm still in power, and the Jewish people are still in Galut. So we're going to throw a party, and we're going to invite the Jewish people to celebrate at this party. And we're going to make the party kosher. Not just kosher, glat kosher, with the most kosher food and most kosher wine. And they used to make, at these parties in Paras, they used to make the food not only amazing and kosher, and the wine kosher, they used to make competitions that people would drink wine, vast amount of wine, till they became delirious, completely drunk, and in many cases died. En ones, this party, the wine is kosher, and there's no forced drinking whatsoever. Because Jewish people don't like to overdrink, they like to overeat. It's like every Jewish wedding you go to. The bar is empty. The food, you can't get your elbow or a finger next to the smorgasbord, right? Because the Jewish people are eating all the food, but not the wine. So over here, en ones, the wine is kosher. As much wine as you want, as little wine as you want. What is Achashverosh doing at this party? He's telling the people, you can eat as much as you want. You can drink as much or as little as you want. Relax, enjoy. Why is he being so nice to the Jewish people? Well, there's 2 ways to kill Jews. You can kill them with hate and venom and bombs, and kidnappings, or you can kill them with love, with ahava, so they assimilate and melt into your society. Achashverosh, at this point, tries to kill us with love. And he looks at the people and says, you're invited to this party, enjoy, relax, the food is kasher, mahadrin, min mahadrin. And most importantly, how is Achashverosh going to dress up? This is the first mention, or in this case, hint at costumes in Megillat Esther. So the Megillah tells us right at the beginning that he started to show off his great wealth. Baroto et osher kavod malchuto. This is the wealth that he had captured from his previous dictators, Belshazzar and Nebuchadnezzar, which they had taken from the Beit HaMikdash, first temple. Ved yakar tiferet gedulato. Tiferet. That, my friends, is the lashon, is a language of the clothing of the Kohanim and the vessels in the Beit HaMikdash. So Achashverosh has done what his predecessors did. He's got dressed up. He should get dressed up because it's a Purim party as the Kohen Gadol, not a Kohen Hediot, like we said upstairs, as a Kohen Gadol. He's put on all 8 garments of the Kohen. Where did he get this costume from? He stole it from Belshazzar. Who stole it? From Nebuchadnezzar. Who stole it? From the Beit HaMikdash. Wow. Now you can start to understand, my dear friends, why the Jewish people were punished for attending this party. It wasn't eating non-kosher food. It's according to most opinions, the food was kasher, mahadrin min mahadrin. And it wasn't for drinking unkosher wine, because the wine was kasher, mahadrin min mahadrin. So why were they punished for attending this party? Can you imagine being invited today to a party, and you arrive at the party, and the plates, and the trays, and the cups were stolen from Jewish people during the Holocaust. And you walk in, and it's a big, beautiful party. And you look around on the walls, and on the walls of this party, there are paintings that were stolen from Jews during the Holocaust. And you look at all the implements, and the decorations, and the carpets, and the tapestries. And you're like, oh, that carpet was stolen from Mrs. Goldberg in 1943. And these plates, these beautiful silver and gold trays, were stolen from synagogues in Krakow, in Warsaw. Can you imagine that? I don't care how kosher the food is. Would you have the gall, have the chutzpah to eat food and drink drinks from kalim, from vessels that were stolen during the Second World War? Now the food may be kosher, but these items are not kosher. Wow, what an indictment that is against you. Terrible, terrible thing to do. But that is precisely, according to Chazal, what the Jewish people did at the time of Achashverosh and the Purim story. They went and they enjoyed eating these foods. Now, what was they thinking? What did they think when they did this? They're like, look, this guy's a mashugana. He's a complete majnun. We can't risk not going to this party. We can't risk not eating. I hear it's very distasteful to eat of this kelim that was stolen from our holy temple in Yerushalayim. But you know what you got to do? Sometimes you got to kiss up to the leadership. So what we're going to do is we are going to pretend. We're going to pretend that we're enjoying ourselves. We're going to pretend that we're done just to show kavod, because this guy has a lot of power, and if he doesn't like us, he could wipe us out in a minute. You know what Hashem did? He said, to complete this game, you want to pretend that you're giving honor to this king by eating from these kelim, eating from these vessels, and drinking from these cups of wine. I'm going to pretend that I'm going to kill you. And that's where the whole onesh, the whole punishment of the Purim story happened. Hashem pretended as well. You want to pretend that you're worshipping Avodah Zarah and not really mean it, fine, no problem. But then I'm going to pretend midah, keneged midah, measure for measure, then I'm going to kill you as well. Not very good, right? You want to play the game, says Hashem? I'll play the same game as you. So you're going to be convinced that you're going to be wiped out by the decree of Haman and Achashverosh. No problem. I'm going to pretend that you're going to be killed by them as well. Now imagine for a moment that you're Achashverosh and you're throwing this big lavish 6-month party to primarily impress upon people that you are the new king, or in his case, the new Kohen Gadol. And so you walk out into your party and you're wearing the 8 items of the Kohen Gadol. And the Jewish people see this. What message is Achashverosh sending to the people present at the party? You're not going back, but don't worry, you don't need to go back. The 70 years is finished, you're still in Galut. Your prophet Jeremiah was wrong. Look, even the Goyim knew Nevi'im back in those days, right? Your prophet was wrong. You're not going back to Eretz Yisrael, but don't worry, I am your new high priest. Welcome to the kahuna of Achashverosh. Everything's gonna be okay. And they were there, and they enjoyed, and they looked at it, and I'm sure there were many people who looked at Achashverosh and were like, yep, I guess this is it. We ain't going back. It's all over. Game over. We are stuck here in Galut. Let's make the best of it, and let's give tremendous kavod to our new leader, Achashverosh. That, my friends, is not how you want to act as a Jew during Galut times, to give your honor and your kavod to leaders who say they have now replaced your country and replaced your leaders with their own open pledges and promises. This is not where you want to be as a people. This is a very dangerous game to play. By the way, I want to add that Achashverosh and Vashti, when you read the Megillah, you think that Achashverosh is not so bad, and Vashti is not such a bad woman. We're not even told how she died. We're told that she was removed, but we're not even told that. By the way, she died a very gruesome death. Why does Achashverosh not seem so bad in the Megillah, and why does her demise not explicitly told? The Gemara tells us how she died, and rabbis tell us that she died a very, very gruesome, terrible death. However, it's not written down. The reason, my friends, is a very important aspect of the Megillah, and that is that the entire Purim story is not a story of redemption, of Geula, because after the Purim story, most of the Jewish people were still in Galut outside of Eretz Yisrael, and Achashverosh was still in power. He wasn't killed and wiped out. Unlike the redemption from Egypt, where we all got out, Baruch Hashem, and survived. That was the real Geula. That was the real redemption. But not the Purim story. Purim story, we were still in Galut, and Achashverosh was still alive, and according to most opinions, he was still married to Esther. So, what does that mean for us? That means that after the Purim story, when Achashverosh was presented the Megillah, right? He was given a art scroll, a Megillah, that he was able to read. They couldn't make him look bad. Because he'd be like, hey, you're making me look like a tyrant, a dictator, a megalomaniac, a narcissist, of which he was. But they couldn't make him appear that way in Megillah, because he got his own copy of it. And so Mordechai and Esther had to encode the entire story so that you'd be forced to double click on certain words and phrases to figure out what the heck's going on. One of them we looked at. We're not told he dressed as the Kohen Gadol. We have to look at words that describe the Big Day Kahuna in the Torah and describe the various artifacts in the Mishkan, the Beit HaMikdash, that were reused by him. We couldn't make him look bad. Same is true, my dear friends, for Vashti. Vashti was killed. However, Achashverosh was absolutely in love with her. And so it couldn't tell us how she died, because he's going to eventually sober up from his party, and he's going to remember what happened to Vashti, and he's going to regret it. So Mordechai and Esther, when they wrote about the death of Vashti, they had to do it in a very subtle way. They couldn't tell us that he had her killed, hanged, had her head removed, and brought to the party on a tray. They couldn't say that, because that wouldn't be so nice to Achashverosh. Years later he looks at us like, oh my God, that's what I did to... That's the whole story? I'm going to do it again. Lo Aleinu, to Esther. And I'm going to blame the Jewish people for it. So Mordechai and Esther they had to hint at the story. Next, my friends, I want to talk about the fan club of Vashti. There seems to be a fan club of Achashverosh and Vashti. And that fan club is, oh, she was such a nice lady, and she was abused by what was done to her. All she wanted to do was to throw a party, her own party. When I read the story as a kid, I thought, wow, what a tznuah, how modest Vashti is to throw her own party. She doesn't want to go to the party of the men. And unfortunately, many Jewish people, foolish ones, by the way, said, Vashti, the first ever Me Too movement. Okay, these people obviously have no clue what Vashti was about, and have no clue what was happening in the party of Achashverosh. Let's start by telling you about Vashti. Vashti was a direct descendant of Nebuchadnezzar, with her granddaughter. She was a terrible and vile woman. Let me remove you from the Vashti fan club. She would take Jewish women. She would strip them naked. She would beat them to humiliate them and make them work on Shabbat. She would make them be machalel Shabbat in order to destroy their spirit and to make them feel disgusting and to make sure that Shabbat would not protect them. Because we all know, we mentioned before, that Shabbat is a Haganah against Amalek. Okay? That's the power of Shabbat. Do you hate Vashti yet? I hope you do. And so, my dear friends, when Achashverosh threw a party, he invited Vashti to come in her crown. And the rabbis tell us, because it's not explicit in the Megillah, that she had to come only in her crown, in her keter. That means he wanted her to come and dance naked in front of his great dignitaries. And by the way, she probably would have done it, right? Had it not been for various skin disease that she had actually taken upon, she would have done it. But why was she throwing her own party? This is important. Because in her mind, the only reason Achashverosh was so powerful was because he was married to her. Because he did not come from royal lineage, but she did. And there's this political battle between Achashverosh and Vashti. He calls her and says, bring me Vashti Hamalka to my party to dance for everyone. She responds from her party. Why is she having her own party? Because I don't need you to throw a party for me. I am powerful enough to have my own party. I come from royal lineage. I am Malchut. You are just a soldier who went up in the ranks and defeated your way to the top. Like those, Middle Eastern dictators. Actually, he literally is a Middle Eastern dictator. And so she said, you tell Achashverosh that Hamalka Vashti is not coming. Listen carefully. She refers to herself as Hamalka Vashti, Queen Vashti. He refers to her as Vashti Hamalka, Vashti who happens to be queen. There's this political battle happening between Achashverosh and Vashti before our very eyes. Now you can't see that directly when you read the Megillah, because once again, we don't want to remind Achashverosh of his very lowly beginnings of not royalty. However, we, the reader, need to know that Vashti was as bad as Achashverosh, if not worse. By the way, how does Vashti get her just desserts? How does the Megillah hint at us that she also was punished for what she did? Well, it's the only occurrence that I know of in the Megillah where we're told the exact day, not the date, but the day of the demise of a person. We're told that Vashti was killed on the 7th day. Why do I need to know the day of the week that she was killed at? Because the 7th day is Shabbat. And therefore she was punished midah keneged midah, measure for measure. She used to embarrass and beat the Jewish women on Shabbat. Oh, midah keneged midah. So too, when it came to Vashti being killed, she was killed on Shabbat as well. Measure for measure. You want to hurt us on Shabbat and beat us, you're going to die on the very, very same day. See? And so here we see the great defeat of our enemies before our eyes, before we even know that something's going on. The decree of Haman hadn't even occurred yet. We're at the very, very beginning party. And by the way, the same is happening right now. There are nisim, nistarim, hidden miracles that are happening to our people, which always happen to our people, and sometimes the truth creeps out. And by the way, it's a mitzvah, when you hear about these miracles, to be mefarsem, pirsumei nisa, to tell the world. Every day we hear stories of great nisim that are happening to our people and to our soldiers, Baruch Hashem, in Eretz Yisrael, in Gaza, around the world as well. Now these stories are hidden away. If you hear them and you verify them, you have to spread them in order to bring kavod shamayim, to bring a great kiddush Hashem to Hashem and the world. But by the way, there's many events that are happening that we do not hear about. But we learn from the Megillah and other such stories that they're happening all the time. Hashem has our back whether we realize it or we don't realize it. Hashem is fighting our battles whether we know these battles are happening or whether we don't know these battles are happening. One day in the future, we're going to hear more and more tremendous miracles that happened during this war that we're in right now at some point. For example, in the Torah, we know that Bilam tried to curse our people at the behest of a king called Balak. While this was all happening, and he was prevented from cursing the Jewish people, while it was happening b'shat ma'aseh, we didn't even know about it. It was happening on mountain tops around the Jewish people's encampment. We didn't know about it. Later on, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote in the Torah, by the way, you didn't even know this, but Hashem had your back, not just when battles were happening publicly, like Milchama of Amalek. Did you know that there were battles happening behind the scenes, and Hashem was fighting those battles without you even knowing? Modim anachnu lach. Thank you, Hashem, for the nisim, for the miracles that you're aware of, and for the great miracles that are happening for our people right now. Right now, our people are being saved. Right now, a person could be walking down the street, lo aleinu, and some terrible challenge, chas v'chalila, could come upon this person, and yet Hashem deflects that without you even being aware. Without you even being aware. If you are made aware of it, tell everyone. But you know what? We have to thank Hashem for the great miracles that we're aware of and the great miracles that we're not aware of. This is one of them in the Purim story. A lot of the events we weren't aware of because a lot of the events were happening in the palace of Achashverosh. And so people were not even aware that they were in danger at this time, that Haman was being elevated, ready to kill us. It makes no difference. We have to realize that Hashem has our back at every single moment, whether we are aware of it or we are not aware of it. And God willing, B'ezrat Hashem, Hashem's protection will be upon us and our holy soldiers in Eretz Yisrael and all of Klal Yisrael and Israel in Israel and throughout the world. And so eventually we will see the great redemption of our people, similar to Purim, but more complete, because Purim ended with the building of the second Beit HaMikdash. We're hoping for Mashiach to come to build the third and final Beit HaMikdash, when every single Jew, not just a portion of them, will return to Eretz Yisrael for the great ultimate Geula. Have a great and successful day. Amen.